Oh, last night I got another pig butchering text.
What'd they say this time?
It says, "Would you like to come over to my place tomorrow?" From unknown number.
These are just so common now. I feel like we get like 10 a day.
They just seem so friendly. Like, it doesn't seem insidious, but we know it is.
Well, that's a perfect way to get into our piece today because the US Treasury is actually imposing sanctions on a Cambodian financial firm called Huione Group for allowing international criminal gangs to run romance scams and cyber crimes through their online marketplace to target Americans.
The Treasury just released a report that found that in the last 4 years, gangs and criminals, some with ties to North Korea, have stolen billions and billions of dollars from everyday Americans. So just the proceeds that Huiwan made for facilitating these transactions was $4 billion. So that's like commission, which is 10% at most. So the gangs made like 40 billion.
I mean, that's just insane. And I feel like we've been warned about these like scammers for a while now. I just thought that they were small, shady, kind of back alley organizations that were ripping people off. But what was really interesting to us about this story is that Huiwan Group is not that. It's this huge, high profile international company.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes this way scarier because it is a legit corporation. Like the cousin of Cambodia's prime minister is a director of one of the Huiwan subsidiaries. And they have satellite companies all over the world, but they are best known in Cambodia because they make those QR codes that are on like all the restaurants and like hotels bills.
So this company, which has actually been referred to as the world's largest illicit internet market, has ads plastered all over the highways in Phnom Penh, and apparently they're operating out in the open. So according to reporting, they're all super loaded and conduct their schemes in high rises overlooking the water and in fancy restaurants where people can just hear them because they're not scared of getting caught. Apparently every few weeks fireworks light up the sky in Cambodia, and it's just common knowledge to everyone that lives there that it's by these scammers celebrating their victories.
A way to be subtle about it. And obviously the scam that these criminals are running is called pig butchering.
And before this story, I had no idea it was called that. I thought that meant killing pigs.
Well, it's like they fatten you up before they butcher you and take all your money.
It's lovely imagery, and apparently it comes from a Chinese phrase that literally means fattening the pig before slaughter. And interestingly, major cybersecurity groups and even Interpol are trying to end the use of the term. So since they think it shames victims of fraud, there's a really big movement to change the name to romance baiting or romance scamming.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that because pig butchering is such evocative imagery and we already all call it that. So like the branding's done. So maybe just take the resources you're trying to put into changing the name and put it into fighting the scams.
So the title for our story will remain Pig Butchering then.
Yes. So today we're speaking to Jeff Kroom, who's a distinguished engineer at IBM and has a PhD in cybersecurity. He also posts YouTube videos on cybersecurity that have more than 10 million views. He wants us to emphasize that all the views expressed in the interview are his own.
We know that there's a lot of different ways that scammers target people. We know that there's like the romance way, there's friendship, there's jobs. Can you walk us through each of these different schemes?
Sure. It's really interesting. There are a lot of different entry points, is the way I look at it. But in general, they all tend to lead to the same place. And the same place is your money on fire. So a typical romance scam, and these happen a lot from dating apps. All of a sudden, you start getting attention from someone that is way out of your league. And you're like, oh, well, this is too great. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this person's interest. Another is what's referred to as pig butchering. I got this message just a couple of days ago from a number I don't recognize. I'm having a little get together at my place tomorrow, and I'd love for you to come over for some hot dogs, because who doesn't love hot dogs? And the idea is that I would respond to that. Even if I just respond and say, I think you've got the wrong number, they're going to continue to try to keep the ball in play. Another one that's very similar to that are job recruitment scams. Here's a great job. You make $1,000 an hour, work, from your home, all these things that are too good to be true.
And with those, are we seeing any demographic or age, gender target, or really it's anyone and everyone?
The people doing these attacks are happy to get anybody's money. The romance scams, many of these take advantage disproportionately of people who are older because they're maybe not as familiar with the technology. And they tend to believe what they've seen.
After these scammers have like fattened up their targets, how do they convince them to send them money? Like, how do you get to that point? Because it seems so like out of the realm of reality.
This is one of those things where if somebody, a stranger, sent you a message and said, send me $10,000, you're going to say get lost.
Right.
But what happens is they slowly turn up the heat, and all of a sudden you don't realize that in fact you're boiling. But they'll say all kinds of complimentary things. You say the most wonderful things. You're the love of my life, and it's not like only suckers are falling for this. Everybody's got some blind spots. The pure romance scams will tend to go down a path of, they're really interested in seeing you. They really want, this to meet, all this kind of stuff. And then they just maybe need a plane ticket. This is, you want to meet them because you're starting to feel a connection. So, and you send the money, and maybe they just take the money and run. Maybe they take the money and make an excuse for why they need yet more money. Maybe they just got laid off from their job. So here's the sob story version. I just got mugged. Somebody stole my money. My mother is sick and in the hospital, and I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't, pay the bills for her. In the other cases, it's more of a friendship. And in those cases, it leads to fake investment scams. People want to invest in crypto. Hey, I just made $10,000 in the last hour, and my uncle showed me how to do this crypto investing. And I asked him, and because you and I are friends, he doesn't mind if I share with you the same way to do it. And they show you pictures of boats and cars and all these kinds of things that they bought with all this money. They show you a great return on your investment. You just doubled your money in a day. So lay down more. You can double your money in another day. And you keep doing more and more. Here's the thing. There was never an investment. Once you ask for your money back, then they disappear.
So what do you think makes a good scammer? Because I feel like a part of it is like you have to be really good at reading people. Because at what point in like the operation do you push? When do you kind of hold back?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. The really good scammers are ones who do have a sense of how to read people and how to find out what your weak point is. Are you really interested in romance or not? Are you just interested in friendship? Are you greedy? I'm going to find out where's your weak point, maybe all of them, and try to exploit all at the same time.
And so walk us through, I'm very interested in the job scam side of things, because if you're looking for job listings, how do you know what is real, what to trust?
This is, I think, one of the more difficult ones. The romance scam, again, I can usually spot those pretty quickly. Recruitment scams are harder. Now, if you get a text message out of the clear blue, I wasn't looking for a job, so I know that's a scam. And then when I read it, it becomes obvious that it is. However, people who actually are looking for jobs, they could end up putting themselves on subscription lists, and they might legitimately get real queries. Real opportunities come through that way. So now it's a lot harder. If you're on LinkedIn, I know LinkedIn tries to stop them, but there's only so much you can do in some of these cases. What do you do on a job application? Well, you got name, rank, and serial number. Where do you live? All these kind. Where have you worked in the past? Where have you lived in the past? We need to do a background check. And an employer, they do need to know your social security number because the law requires it.
Obviously, these scammers aren't just trying to take your money. They can use your information for nefarious purposes as well. So what can they use all of this information to do?
Yeah. So one is, I can get a credit card in your name and make a bunch of charges all in one day. And then all of a sudden you're left with the bill. That might be the thing that now denies you from being able to get that next loan that you really need, or maybe even get a job. If I get enough information about you and I want to take all the money out of your bank account, how would I do that? I can say I forgot the password. And then it's going to ask me some questions. What was the name of your favorite pet? Well, it's probably on your social media page. Mother's maiden name, of course, we all know what a lousy question that is because that's in public records databases. Another job recruitment scam, if you're working remote, you need certain tools and supplies. So we need you to go order these things. We have a contract with this particular company. So we need you to order these supplies and then we'll reimburse you. So you go to the website, you put in your credit card number, and they're off to the races. So there's just all kinds of variations on these, and they're dreaming up new ones every day.
Well, I guess the million-dollar question then is, how can people protect themselves from these scams?
Okay, unplug everything and go live in the hills. Just give up. Resistance is futile. No, that is not the message, but you got to be really careful. It begins with training yourself, understanding what the technology can do and what its limitations are, and remaking how we think about trusting individuals. Other things you can do, Make sure you have good passwords, two-factor authentication, and use a technology called pass keys when you see those offered. Ask a few probing questions just to see, if this person says they live in some place that I know is 200 miles from the ocean, I might ask them a question. Boy, what's it like living right there at the beach? Can you hear the waves from your house? And then when they say yes, okay, it's over. You've got a lazy scammer in that case. I would say if you're involved in a romance scam or something like that, demand a video call at minimum. Understand the video call can still be faked, but anybody that starts giving you excuses to why they can't do that, red flags, because that's kind of a deal breaker. All of this stuff gets more and more professional, and that, they keep getting better with theirs. We got to keep getting better with the defense.